A lot of people are worried about how Gmail is going to be different than Outlook. So we can actually change a lot of the settings. You can customize so many settings in all of the Google programs, so you can probably find a way to make it look the way you want it to look. But we're going to try and set up Gmail so that it looks and functions a little more like Outlook. So first and foremost, we're going to come over here to the toggle split pane mode button. All right, you click that, it gives you three options. No split is what it starts out on. Vertical split, that's the one that Outlook featured, right? So there's your list of messages, and here's where the messages will be displayed. When you click on each one, it shows you what the different messages look like. So that's the way Outlook was set up. You could also go with a horizontal split if you like. That puts the list of messages at the top with a little scroll bar over here, and it puts the message itself toward the bottom so you can see here's what this message looks like. Personally, I like the vertical split. That's what I'm going with. Next, we need to go over to the settings. As we're going to click on this gear. Under the gear, we're going to go down to where it says Settings. When we click the settings, it's going to bring us into, it's going to give us lots and lots of different things to click on. Don't sweat it. We're going to set this up one time. You can always come back and change things if you want, but just follow along, set it up this way, and you won't have to come back and do it again if you don't want to. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is under Settings, we're going to move our mouse across until we see where it says Labs. We're going to click on the Labs link, and it's going to show us some labs that we can turn on. Now, labs are extra features that you can turn on within Gmail, and some of them have already been turned on for you. Now, the way the labs are set up is the ones that are turned on, the ones that are enabled, are at the top of this long list of many, many things. And they're alphabetical within their list, okay? So the enabled ones that are on right now, Google Calendar, Green Robot, Preview Pane, G, G, P, Q, so they're in alphabetical order. If we go down underneath enabled and we keep going, we'll see that there's an available labs section. And we're going to turn on a bunch of these because they're going to give us some features that we like. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn on the following available labs. We're going to turn on Auto Advance. We're going to turn on Canned Responses. We're going to enable Custom Keyboard Shortcuts. Scroll down a little further here. We're going to enable Google Docs Previews. We're going to enable Google Maps Previews. We're going to enable Google Voice Player. We're going to enable the Mark as Read button. Scroll some more here. We're going to enable Pictures in Chat. We're going to enable, let's see, we're going to scroll down some more first. And we're going to enable SMS text message in chat. We're going to enable Undo Send. That's a big one that we'll talk more about in a little bit. We're going to enable Unread Message icon. This is the thing that will make a little number appear up here when you have your Gmail turned on. That'll tell you how many unread messages you have. And that's it. Now, once we've enabled those things, we have to save our changes to the settings. So we're going to click Save Changes. Gmail is going to reload. It's going to take a second to do that. Once it's reloaded, we're going to end up going back into those settings and clicking a couple more buttons. So Gmail's loaded back up. I'm going to come back over to my gear. I'm going to click where it says Settings. And underneath Settings, I'm already in the General section. So I'm going to go through the General section now and set some changes. So page size. I personally like to show 100 conversations per page. That means that when I go back into my inbox, there's going to be 100 messages listed before I have to flip to a new page. So I personally like having that set to the maximum amount, 100. I also like to do the same thing with my contacts. Set that to 250. Auto Advance, I like to have it set to go to the next newer conversation when I'm done. You can change that around if you want to go to the older conversation or the thread list. That means back to the list of messages. Personally, I think this is the way Outlook was set up, so that's what I'm going with. Default reply behavior. If you want, you can set it so that if multiple people are on an email, when you hit reply, it won't just go to the one person that is sending it to you. It'll go to all the people listed in the email. But that's a choice you need to make. I'm going to leave it set as reply myself. If you want, you can go into the default text style and change what that looks like, but we'll talk about that later. Now, this one's a big one, conversation view. Lots of people flipped their lid when Outlook turned on Conversation View and we had to turn it off. Conversation View groups together emails. So if somebody sends you an email and you write back and they write back, instead of seeing 3 different messages in your inbox, you'll see one that keeps going to new, keeps becoming new as people reply to it. Personally, I would rather have 3 different messages to keep track of. It's a little bit easier in my brain to see how these different replies are coming in, to try and look back at the same email over and over again. So I like to have Conversation View off. Most people do. That's what I'm going to turn on. As we keep rolling down here, undo send. Now, if you want to enable undo send, you just make sure this checkbox right here is turned on, and then you can choose how long a period of time do you want to have after you click send to be able to pull that message back. Now, enable undo send, what that does in real life is when you send an email, it puts in a delay of however many seconds you choose before it sends the email itself. So if I'm sitting right next to you and I send you an email, I click send, it's going to take at least 30 seconds before it goes to you. I don't think 30 seconds is going to be a make or break, life or death situation in an email, so I like to have that 30 seconds to pull back an email in case I made a mistake or I sent it to the wrong person. You can decide whether you want your emails to go from unread to read immediately as soon as you click on them, after 1 second, after 3 seconds of looking at it, or they never switch from unread to read unless you purposely click a button that says mark this as unread. I like it set to 3 seconds. You can choose what you want. Stars are just for fancy stuff. You can add all different ways of marking your email. Personally, I don't use them. I'm skipping them. Desktop notifications. You want to set your mail notification to new mail notifications on. That means that when you get a new email and your Gmail window is open, you get a little pop-up down in the corner down here that says, you've got a new email from so-and-so. So I'm going to turn that on. Keyboard shortcuts. You want to turn those on because that lets you do Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. So that is a handy thing to have. Button labels. Set them to text because on the main Gmail page, instead of having words here that say, this is the refresh button, it's got this wacky arrow thing. And if I'm in a message, instead of having words that tell me what these different buttons are, I've got these pictures. So what the heck is a box with an arrow? What the heck is a stop sign with an exclamation point? I can change that to show me text instead. And when I save these settings, those pictures that are now here are going to change over to words instead. If you want to set a picture, you can do that. It'll show up in people's email list when they see an email from you. You're going to want to hide the people widget. People widget just takes some space on your screen. You really don't need it. Create contacts. I'll add contacts myself. Trust me on this. Signature. We're going to talk about setting up signatures at a later point, so we're just going to skip it for now. Personal level indicators, don't worry about snippets, who cares? Vacation responder, we'll come back and talk about that later. Outgoing messages, don't worry about it. So we've set our changes. We're going to save those changes. And once again, Gmail is going to reload. Now I'm back in my inbox, and my icons have changed into words. When I go into a message, instead of having a box with an arrow, it's an archive. Instead of having a stop sign with an exclamation point, it tells me that's a spam button. So now I've got my label set up. I've got my auto advance, my auto repeat, all that good stuff ready to go. So you should be more or less looking at an Outlook version of Gmail at this point.